The Major may be done, but the interesting stuff in Counter-Strike is not, because while the Major was on, I didn't even get time to talk about this Falcons drama that went down thanks to this video they released. Let's get into it.
I will start.
So firstly, you can see straight away, this is clearly a team meeting. Just for some context, they have had their first day in the RMR. They have 1 win and 1 loss at this point. And now we get some editing here where a lot of the video actually gets cut from YouTube. But as you can see from the like to dislike ratio, clearly people felt some kind of way about this. Luckily though, we're on the internet. The internet never forgets. And so there is this version on Twitter.
To be fair, but a lot of circumstances did what we didn't. And normally I'm not focusing on individual performance. Because we can
Okay, normally we're not focusing on an individual performance. Good, Zonic. That sounds alright.
all have a shit game. But I also think a lot of it started before the game. And I have to point my finger at you.
Oh, never mind. There are different circumstances here, apparently, which means boros is getting the finger pointed at him.
Changing mouse when you had a tournament where you played really well, it's a risky move, in my opinion. I don't know if it's the same mouse or if it's a new mouse.
Kind of interesting to say, I don't know if it's the same mouse or a new mouse, but boros did indeed change his mouse before this RMR. I think I'll probably defend this more than most people. This was the thing that was most talked about, but we'll get into that later because there's some other stuff Zonic has to say.
Forgetting your in-ears, for me, you're totally gone mode.
In case anyone doesn't know, your in-ears are basically the headphones that the pros use in Counter-Strike. They don't actually use their headphones for sound like this. They have smaller little headphones that they put underneath, and they use the top, bigger headphones, basically just for the microphone and for some more noise cancelling so that they don't hear the crowd as much. So that is honestly a really bad mistake to make. That is genuinely as bad as forgetting your mouse or keyboard. You cannot play if you don't have your in-ears. I mean, I guess technically you could, but you couldn't communicate. So that is genuinely a very bad mistake to make.
And you're sitting on fucking Nvidia and changing in the middle of the game. It's fine to have a bad game. But there's just so many circumstances that fucks it up before the game.
And I think that's where you can now maybe understand Zonic's tone a little more here. I think that changing NVIDIA settings in the game is honestly so silly, but at the same time, a lot of pro players do really silly things and are successful. And so I think it's, I don't know, it's tough because I would get annoyed by this. But also, for some reason, some players seem to do this and actually play better. But so far, I think Zonic has been very stern, but I think he's been fairly fair in general. Maybe a bit harsher than boros would be used to. But overall, I don't think this is the end of the world. It's harsh, but this is a competitive environment. I don't think that's too bad.
And the reason I'm getting angry because I know you're fucking better than that.
And he is trying to also empathize with boros a bit and say, I'm only annoyed because I know you can be better. Maybe the tone could be like a bit more nice there, but I still think in general that this isn't bad. I do think there is a question of whether you should be having a team meeting like this mid-tournament in the first place. I think the problem has to be very big to come out and basically say, okay, let's get all our emotions out there. Because you could see at the start, it basically seems like they're in a circle, and maybe they do this at the end of every day to try and get their feelings out so that they all understand each other. That is an important thing to do. But if you're going to do that, I think you need to do it in a way where it feels like everyone is on the same side. And I think right now, it's on the borderline. But boros is probably still feeling like, he's getting told off. But I think he'd come away from this and be okay. But then some of the other players get involved as well.
You showed such improvement, but we fucking need you. And I don't want all this disturbance. If we're losing to a better opponent.
Another important thing is, obviously, this video is edited, so we don't actually know the order this stuff is said in. You see a lot of cuts throughout this, so that makes it a little harder to keep on top of the narrative as well.
I don't know when to take it up, because we also have an important tournament, but I feel it's fucking necessary.
And that is the thing there. Zonic himself, actually, I think even admits, maybe he's not sure if this is actually even the right time to bring this up, but he feels like he has to. I think ideally, if you saw, for example, the mouse changing before the tournament, you could maybe bring it up then and say, hey, I think this is risky. If you want to do it, that's fine. But just know this is risky, and I want to see you still play well. But it does feel a little tough to me to bring it up. Basically, the first day after he's changed his mouse, you instantly bring it up to him, and now he probably doesn't have a choice, right? that decision he is probably stuck with. And the mouse changing part is, I think, the part that a lot of people catch onto in this video. And it's always, in my opinion, pretty rough to be basically shitting on a player for something they've already changed in the past and something they kind of can't change now, right? If you were saying, Boros, your communication wasn't that good today, I want you to focus on having clearer comms next game, that's fine. But is Boros suddenly going to be able to go back to his old mouse now? No, I doubt it. Even if he's brought it with him, I think at that point, you've already practiced for a few days on the mouse that you've changed to, so you're not going to change it back. And then you just kind of feel powerless, and you feel like people are getting annoyed at you for something that now you can't change. So I think maybe it would have been better to bring this up after the tournament, but I don't know. It's tough. I see why they brought it up, but at the same time, I just feel like this is potentially going to damage Boros' confidence so much that maybe he just had one bad day. And if you don't, affect his mental now, maybe he will turn it around tomorrow. But you'll never know if you put him in a negative headspace and now he can't aim the same way.
We need to fucking show up and be there. And if there is issues, talk to us.
And I do feel like Zonic is striking the balance pretty well. But as you'll see, I think the problem is once the rest of the players chime in.
If there is, like with your PC, people can help you set it up. But it's fucking risky changing your mouse. There's no way.
I still don't know about this. Again, the mouse thing, you've heard my opinion. I know if I was in Boros' shoes, I would be like, well, shit, man, I can't change that now. What do you want me to do? I understand that you think I've fucked up. Can we just look forward? Can we not put all this pressure on me about this mouse thing now that we're here? Because we've still got games to play in this tournament.
Point is, my weakness is my aim. Your weakness, your strength is your aim. At the fucking Katowice, you had the most insane aim.
So good.
Some of the most insane aim I've seen. Don't change your mouse before the RMR.
I think Snappy here is trying to do what Zonic was just doing, but I don't know if it's just me. The tone I get in his voice is so much more like a teacher lecturing a student and being like really annoyed and disappointed in them. And I think the other problem is, for people like Zonic and Snappy, these are people who always have to prepare very heavily and put in a lot of grind and effort, and are probably people who are very particular about all their settings and their mice and their keyboard and everything. I imagine Boros is kind of the opposite of that. He's probably one of those players that can change up quite often because he's so mechanically skilled. And he doesn't really care about keeping everything consistent and the same, and he's not as into all the setup and stuff like that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Snappy is thinking about this from his perspective, whereas from Boros' perspective, he just does this stuff generally anyway. So I think you've got to be empathetic and understanding of how other people might be different to you. And I think this might just be an area where Boros is different to Snappy, and Snappy might not be fully getting that.
And with because of it.
And then again, with because of it. I don't know if you know from just 2 best of ones, do you really know that it's the mouse that's causing him to whiff? What if he just had a bad game? Because now you're introducing a different variable. Now you're piling all this pressure on him, and suddenly maybe he just had one bad day yesterday, but now because you've put him in a bad headspace, maybe he plays badly for the rest of the tournament because suddenly he's second guessing himself. Especially when you've got so many veterans around you telling you fucked up. That can affect the confidence of a player like this. And I think for Boros on this team, he probably needed more of a hand around the shoulder and someone and a team that's going to help him out and make him feel at home. Because he probably did have a bit of imposter syndrome, being on a team with so many legends, with so many experienced players. But instead, it does feel like they've gone the other way and been a bit too antagonistic. And maybe this is the teammates they're used to having in the past, but I think it's important to change depending on the teammate you have in front of you.
This thing with changing mouse, it also tilts me. Like, I see you, bro. Like, I'm in off angle, secret. Memil spotted them crossing secret. And you're whiffing 20 bullets on a guy, jumping around. Like, I never seen you whiffing. And this is probably because of your changing mouse and settings and watching donk settings. And
watching donk settings is so funny. That sounds exactly like the sort of thing Boros would do to me. And again, I think the rest of these players are very professional and probably very particular with their settings, and they just don't understand why Boros would do this. Whereas sometimes you just got to understand, listen, different players are going to do different things. If you get to the end of the tournament and he's played badly, fair play. Bring this up, say the mouse was the problem, and say, listen, we don't want to go forward with you. But the other obvious point is, why are Falcons releasing this? This is the thing everyone agrees with. Why are Falcons releasing this after the fact? This honestly feels like you've had a breakup with an ex-girlfriend. You somehow like recorded part of an argument you had, and you were like, I need to put this out in the world and tell everyone what a bad person or what a bad partner my ex was. And it's like, no, listen, you've already benched boros. You're already not playing with boros. We don't need to put this out into the world and affect his future prospects as a player. Do we really need to do that? It kind of feels in bad taste when you have already kicked him from the team, right?
It just makes you feel uncomfortable. Stick with your settings. You are hitting insane, bro. Like, I know that Mo would never miss this.
And this is the other thing, right? And this is a point you can take away with you. Whenever you're making points to someone, I get you want to get what you're saying off your chest. But boros, to me, here does not look engaged at all. He looks like he's kind of retreating in on himself. Like, he's a bit confused and almost like trying to take in everything. And he's not exactly like firing back and getting fired up by this, is he? I don't think this is motivating him. I don't think this is pushing him to be like, yeah, okay, you're right. He's just kind of sitting there and he looks a bit lost almost. And I think if you can recognize that in the moment and you look at him and you say, okay, I don't think he's actually responding to this well, that's when you need to either say the things in a much, much nicer way, or just maybe say, okay, listen, let's back off the guy for our chances going forward in the tournament.
Guy, 20 bullets in the back.
And then there's a little bit more here from Magus.
No, I don't want to have any fucking regrets when I'm done here. If I'm not qualifying to the major, it's not because we're changing a fucking mouse. I swear to God.
I think the mouse stuff is tough, as I've brought up earlier. The mouse stuff is tough. boros must be feeling like, what can I do? What can I do to change this? And the other thing I will say, to be fair to both sides, is you can tell all the players are emotional here. So I'm not expecting any of them to be like some perfect person in this scenario. But I think, looking back, most of them probably would say, okay, maybe for boros in particular, we could have been a bit nicer. And you know what? If Magisk had some fuck-ups, I think he would be the kind of person where if you were aggressive towards him and antagonistic like this, it would probably be for the best. If you were harsh but fair with Magisk, I think he'd say, yeah, fair play, I did mess up. But I just don't think boros is that kind of person.
It's not because we're changing settings or we are forgetting our fucking in-ears or fucking AirPods or whatever it is all the fucking time. I swear to God, fix it and do better. And when that is said, I think we can be proud of ourselves.
I think we can be proud of ourselves today. Now, as I was saying earlier, I do think boros is the kind of guy to take this sort of thing personally. And for the mouse stuff, by the way, this is a funny tweet for what it's worth. Did you change your keyboard for this tweet like you did with your mouse? Got a chuckle out of me. And it's also hilarious that boros replies to this tweet specifically saying, by the way, people talking about my mouse. Apparently his glides were a bit broken on his old mouse, so he tried another mouse in 2 days for practice. It was feeling good, and he decided to play with it for the better. Of course, he didn't want to feel uncomfortable. I think that's actually totally reasonable. I'm not going to lie. Again, I wouldn't do it. Okay, look at my mouse here. This is a G402. It's dusty as hell. I'm the kind of guy that sticks with the same mouse, okay? I am someone who likes to go, you know, ride or die with my mouse. Until that boy is broken, I'm sticking with it. But that's the sort of player I am. I'm pretty sure, I think it was Flusher back in the day, would literally just sit down and choose his sensitivity just based on sort of what felt right to him. Like, he'd do a few swipes, and he'd try and swipe a certain distance and see how far it would take him. And he wouldn't even use the same sensitivity every game. So different players can be different on this. And I think it's actually fairly reasonable. Like, I would be a bit questionable of it, but I would also wait until the end of the tournament. That's the main thing. Wait to see if he actually has a bad event. And to be fair, I think backing up the point where I said, I don't think boros is getting fired up by this. I mean, he wrote what has to be the longest paragraph of all time here. I'm not a rap god, okay? I'm not Eminem. I can't rap all of this right off the dome. These 5 lines in a row. Please, use some commas. Use some punctuation, boros. But I'll go ahead and paraphrase it for you. Basically, he felt like there was a lot of like pressure in the team to be top 1 to 5 in the world too quickly. He didn't really feel like he was fully part of the team in a healthy environment. And he basically felt like he wasn't really part of the team from the first official, from the beginning. And I think that probably comes down to a difference in experience levels. All the other players were very experienced at the top level. and probably had a certain standard of professionalism they expected. And I don't think boros was used to that. But I think you have to be at least a little understanding. Now, the question is, how understanding do you need to be? Because again, I disagree with how they talk to him about the mouse stuff. And by the way, this is the main takeaway here. When I know I fucked up about something, I am already tilted from it. I don't need someone to tilt me more. And I think even if Zonic just comes in and reaffirms it to him, I think that's fine. But when the entire team is just, you know, basically shitting on you for something that you've already changed, I can see why boros would feel like this. I'm the type of person that would feel like this too. And there are people that would get hyped up by this, but boros clearly ain't one of them. Now, apparently there are other things as well. Maui Snake, this statement is wild to me.
There's so much more disparaging information known about boros behind the scenes that if I say it, it's almost like I would get arrested or I would get sued. So I'm not going to do that. If he lawyered up, I can't say anymore. So like
the fact he nearly said arrested is wild. Okay. Like, what could boros have done behind the scenes? I don't think Maui actually meant arrested, by the way. I think that was a slip of the tongue, but still. What could boros have done behind the scenes that Maui can't even say it, or Maui might get arrested? That is such a funny idea to me. Like, has he got blackmail on you, bro? Like, what's going on? And then also, basically then, you know, tracking back and saying, you know, okay, maybe not arrested, but sued. I mean, that is a wild statement in and of itself. And I think there were rumors that he was like late to practice, for example, and little things like this. And I think it probably comes down to that team talk ended up being a situation where there were a lot of frustrations built up and they kind of got a lot of those feelings out into the open at the tournament. And they kind of used the mouse thing as a little bit of a scapegoat at times. And as I was saying, I just think that's not going to make boros feel any type of way better. And like mid-tournament, guys, mid-tournament, the worst thing to do, in my opinion, is to complain at a teammate for something they now can't change. Like, imagine mid-tournament if you just started saying, oh, we should have practiced Inferno more. That's why we lost this map. Oh my God, you guys. Like, how unproductive is that? That's the only thing. And again, I will concede, I will admit, that the other players were probably emotional too, and they weren't acting in their best capacities. But in general, I think that would have been a better way to go about this. There's still more, though. There's still more. This is a long-ass video, okay? There's still more. Because later on, Vegas tries to save it a bit.
Do you understand my frustration?
Yeah, I understand. Me too, I'm so sensitive myself. Like, I lost the game, of course. I lost myself.
No.
There it is. And that is the moment for me that basically confirms that whatever you want to feel about the situation and whether, you know, boros should have got some grief from the team, which maybe was deserved, the way it was gone about, I don't think was productive for the team. Because whenever a player says, I lost the game for the team, something has gone horribly wrong, okay? Even if he did actually lose the game for you, if you have a player on your team who genuinely is sitting there saying, I'm annoyed at myself because I lost this game for us, in a way where he almost looks like defeated and almost looks like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I do feel for the guy a bit. I think that is what really shows me that boros clearly as a personality is not the kind of guy to get fired up by this. He's the kind of guy to instead internalize it and take it in on himself. And yeah, therefore you've got to be aware of the personalities you're dealing with, right? And whenever you can in life in general, try and be aware of what people are going to respond best to, right? You don't treat everyone the same way, okay? I'm not exactly going to go up to my nan and start swearing at her, right? Because I understand she's a sensitive soul, bless her. I love my grandma. She's great. She's lovely. She's also a badass woman. Maybe I'll tell you about that one day. But I'm not going to go up to her and be mean, right? And different people can handle different levels of things. And I don't think boros could handle this, frankly. And I think it could have affected his performance for the rest of the tournament. He could have felt like at this point, oh man, I feel like I'm on thin ice here. There's even more pressure on me at a huge pressure event anyway in the RMR. And I think this is where the other teammates try and realize they've been a little too harsh on him, maybe, or that he's taken it badly, let's say. And they try and save it, but it's kind of too far gone at this point.
No, I lost.
We lose it all, and we also win it all.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. Boros genuinely looks like he might be on the verge of tears at points. I mean, I don't know if that's just coincidence, but it doesn't look great for him. Which I think is why a lot of people empathize with him. But at the same time, you have to remember, like, forgetting your in-ears is inexcusable. That is genuinely like forgetting your football boots for a football game or something. Like that's pretty bad. But I think there's a way to handle it that maybe could be a bit nicer, right?
I'm saying it because we need you. We fucking loved you in Katowice mode. I swear to
Dude,
God.
even that, I know it's subtle, but saying we loved you in Katowice, why would you say that? I understand this is an emotionally charged conversation, but all I'm hearing if I'm Boros is, oh, you used to love me and now you don't. Like, that's not what I want to hear. I want to hear my guys getting behind me now because I'm clearly very upset.
You were the reason we won 2 fucking best of 3s in a row in Katowice, and we need that back.
So yeah, listen. Oh, I think overall, yes, it was probably reasonable to bring these things up. It could have been done in a better way. And I genuinely think it could have affected Boros' performance going on in the tournament. One more thing I will add, though. An interesting point from Boros himself here.
I didn't have the good start this tournament because I was playing with different mouse and...
Now, he does say he had a bad start because he was playing with a different mouse. And again, you can see how like he's very much feeling like he messed up the mood of the team because he didn't play well. So again, like taking it much more on himself than he probably should be. I'm interested by that statement because on the one hand, maybe Boros genuinely does think that because he changed his mouse, he played way worse. I think that's potentially true. But on the other hand, you've got to remember Boros is the least experienced player on this team, and everyone on his team has just been telling him about how he messed up by changing his mouse. So I wonder if he just is saying what he's been told by his teammates because he respects them, and maybe he doesn't actually fully feel that. It would be interesting to know. You never know with these sorts of things, but considering he tweeted afterwards kind of saying he was playing well in practice, I would maybe guess the latter.
This like make the mood different because I didn't shoot good first day and it created like bad energy in the team, and yeah, of course it's different feeling even because it's the major.
Absolutely. So overall, I think it's a tough one because I understand in a team environment you have to have harsh conversations sometimes, but I think there's a question of, was this the right time to have that conversation? Could it have been done in a nicer way, specifically to cater to Boros? Because it doesn't seem like he deals with the sort of harsh tone as well as maybe some other people do. But I also think, at the same time, we can't just say that Boros is like some innocent party in this. I'm sorry, but, you know, from what I've heard, maybe being late to practice, for example, that's unacceptable, okay? I cannot stand when someone shows up late to something, right? I've showed up on time because my time is valuable, right? As Kanye said. No, I'm not going to quote the Kanye line. But time is extremely valuable, okay? And I prefer not to waste it. So that's already a point that needs to be, you know, focused on. And then also the forgetting the in-ears thing. It's so hard to get past that. It is hard. And that's something that you've got to discipline people for. I definitely think that it seemed like it wasn't the right fit. I also think a very interesting discussion point, which I might not get into now, but I will get into later, is personality types of esports players in general. Because I think there's definitely an argument to be made that whenever you are competing and whenever you're trying to be at the top of your field, having a personality type that is more, you know, accepting of like a really just harsh conversation and nature and tone, those are the players that seem to do better in general. Like, think of Simple, right? Simple would literally just tell other players they were shit when they started. When he started playing, I don't think he understood the social game as much. He didn't understand he needed to keep the mood of the team high. And so he would genuinely just be very, very harsh to people. And slowly he's got better at that over time. But it seems like those sorts of people already lean towards being more competitive in their drive and in their mindset, and it helps them out. The counterpoint is, someone like Elige has been talked about in their career as also being someone who can internalize things sometimes and maybe doesn't respond as well to very harsh and pointed criticism. But I think the difference is with Elige, you know that he is working incredibly hard. He is incredibly diligent. He is already improving as much as he can himself. And Boros, you never really get that vibe with. I've always got the vibe with Boros that he's someone who's very sharp, very mechanically skilled, but honestly, someone that doesn't really fully understand the professionalism of pro Counter-Strike. And something that would be very interesting to know is how much behind the scenes the Falcons guys were trying to help him with that leading up to this event already. Because that honestly did feel like a long, long build-up of frustrations all being let out at what probably wasn't a great time. Anyway, a lot of thoughts there, a long-ass video. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. More content coming soon. Thank you for watching. If you made it to the end, drop a caw down below, in case you don't know how to spell that. C-A-W, C-A-W. That way, I know you're a real one. Appreciate you for making it this far. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.